Right, hello, and welcome to the Orgs Talks podcast. If you don't know me, my name's Charlie. I'm an artist who's just started a podcast because he wants to talk about the kind of creative ecology around me and the work that I was making and the work that I hope to make. I'm going to talk about things that I'm interested in within the art world, kind of culturally at large, but that might not come up as often. So if you just want to hear what goes on in my head, stick around. Now, in today's episode, we're going to be taking a little trip down memory lane. We're going to be talking all about kind of where everything stemmed from for me. I promised if you did watch some of the last episode that I'd talk about me a little bit more, and I do want to talk about my artwork in this one and just kind of set up that journey so that we're all on the same page for when I start ripping into stuff in a few episodes' time. Because I feel like that's going to happen, and I want to contextualize it a little bit more and not just seem like a prick. So yeah, we're going to talk about me because that's not self-censored at all. Right, I think we're going to get into it. It's going to start in a place where I don't think it would start, but we're going to be talking about Pokemon. Yeah, I think my artistic journey really started with my love affair for Pokemon. It was probably, I don't know how old I would have been. Would have been around the age of 10, 11, I reckon. But I do feel like every day of every week for nearly 2 years, just sat there brainstorming and drawing designs. And that was at a peak of kind of early video gaming for Charlie on the DS. I didn't just have a DS though, I had a DS XL, and then I got a 3DS XL. So we'll get into the reason for that another time. And then I got to it might have been year 8 during school, and I was introduced to an artist whose work I've only just seen. I've only just seen it for the first time. It was a bucket list artist. Managed to tick it off the list very nicely. That was Alberto Giacometti, and his work was the most frustrating project I think I had during my time in secondary school, especially art in secondary school. Now, I remember the reason for this frustration was because of a project we had to do was making a sculpture out of wire. And firstly, I think this was one of the first ever like sculpture projects I could like do at home as well, specifically towards art and not just like something in primary school. And oh my god, working with wire. It nearly put me off art altogether. It nearly put me off the whole gig, the whole thing. I think it was around this time as well that I developed an affiliation for Mesoamerican artwork, like the Aztecs, really. We'll generalize. That might be a bit of a racial assumption, but it's easier for translation. Around the dark ages of working with like Giacometti as an idol, I'll say. Mesoamerican art was something that really saved me and pulled me out from that kind of slump, and it was great. I say this, it saved me. I was 14. I didn't know that art was going to be the direction that I took back then. I think it was just eye-opening for me. I think that was the one thing, seeing art be used as a pillar of a culture and it be kind of worshipped and not just like a hobby, not just like, you know, a doolally drawings, which I've been doing my whole life, which was great. But yeah, to see it actually be like pivotal to a civilization, I think that was one thing that was, again, it lifted me up a little bit more into an art world rather than a hobby point of view, which at 14 was, I think, a fairly big turning point for me. I think after Mesoamerican artwork had like been and gone, it had its time, it had its era. Texture was something that really came to the forefront of my artwork. I didn't know why at the time. I didn't know if I don't know any of the teachers or anyone around me knew at the time. But I later found out. I do think that the reason for that was this kind of need for seeing. I think that's where this, I don't know, this desperation for detail came from, and this kind of desperation to have something be texturally gripping rather than colourful. that make sense? I think that was what it was at the time. I think that's the best way I could put it, going back into probably about year nine Charlie's head. It was also around this time as well that I was introduced to the idea of assemblage.
Yeah,
Assemblage was the first time I considered found objects to be something you could make art out of. It's now something that's constantly, time and time again, come into my artwork. But yeah, that kind of period, I was making works and I was making posters around these works. Of like, I had a metal mangle frame. I'd used wooden blocks. I used scaffold. Yeah, they were really cool works. I don't think they were too critical and challenging, but for me, they were something that was really kind of a shift in my mentality of what you could make art out of, and something now that obviously is really, really contextualized and informed quite a lot of what I do now. We're kind of progressing into a little bit more, I don't know, up to date, Charlie. Really, we're starting this kind of the journey with concrete, as I should say. Um, yeah, I think after Mess American Art was when concrete really came into play for me, and it resulted from the introduction of an artist called Anselm Kiefer by my secondary school art teacher, who hit the nail on the head with that one. I will be honest, that was a fairly good suggestion from him. But yeah, the work of Anselm Kiefer was just something that just I wouldn't be able to put into words how captivated I was by a bloke who I initially thought just dipped dresses in concrete, and that was like what I did for the next 3 or 4 years, if not more than that. And I will be honest, I think that captivation became such a mystery for me over the next probably about 8 years or so as I continued to work with concrete. I will get into that later on. But it just came back time and time again. Kiefer, he was constantly influencing my work, and I kept using him as like one of the main pillars for contextualizing why on earth I'm doing what I'm doing. And as annoying that was to, I think, every single academic, it was still incredibly important to me as a creative. I still couldn't crack why these dresses and this texture and everything about his work was just so important to me. But I think I got it. I think I eventually got it, and we'll get into that. But yeah, Anselm Kiefer was always there, but then other people definitely crept into my artwork. One of the main influences for me, I think, in that era of Kiefer was actually the work of the Boyle family, whose work was, I don't know, it was again one of those things. Why am I captivated by such mundane imagery? Like, I'm sure I'm showing this above me old noggin right now, or completely over me. But yeah, it's wild that photos of streets and pavements and roads. Oh, mate, I still take photos of pavements and curbs today. It's still something that I do all the time. Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love their work. Once again, that kind of circulation around concrete, trying to find in those early days artists that use concrete. I think anyone who at least acknowledged it for something a little bit more than just a capitalist material was, yeah, loved it. Really, really good. Well done, Boy Family. 10 out of 10. I don't think you need my validation, but still. But another artist that played a big part was the work of Bill Viola. Well, I say he played a big part. He played a very important part, but it didn't last long at all. This guy almost made like a cameo within my kind of like my creative ecology, and then just disappeared. Just never came up again. At least like Anselm Kiefer has been like pivotal, and the Boyle family is something that I'm still interested in now. This guy did like 1 year of my work, really informed it, just left. But that was when I was kind of working around the elements. I was really trying to use what I'd been inspired by Kiefer and pull Bill Viola's work within that. And I think that led to, imagery wise, some of the most challenging and quite groundbreaking works for me, I think. Basically, I'm sure it's on screen now, but I did this Festival of Immortality, and some of the photography and some of the works within this are, I think, absolutely amazing, and still, to me, I think some of the best work that I've done, some of the most groundbreaking work that I've achieved. And if I could actually do this Festival of Immortality on a real thing, yeah, I'd love that. That'd be great. That'd be wicked. That kind of Festival of Immortality as well was kind of born from this idea. I'd basically gone from just making concrete dresses because I was interested in texture to then I think I looked into matrimony first. I was, yeah, because it could have been the wedding dress. I wanted to contextualize the wedding dress. And I got really caught up in this idea of matrimony and this kind of merger of life, really. Matrimony was a really big thing, and then that became birth. I felt like that was the next like major life step. I don't know. Hear me out. I feel like there's like that kind of, I'm gonna say, like template for life. I think that's the best way I can put it now. I had this kind of template in my head of marriage, kids, death. That's what it was. It was basically I looked at marriage, I looked at birth, and then I looked at death and decay, and then I looked at rebirth as well. And that was all done throughout all of this imagery through the Festival of Immortality, hence the immortality part. And oh, I love that. That was a great little project. Yeah, really, really good. I think that was a really pivotal moment for me in terms of what I liked and what I didn't like as an artist. And now at this point, we've left school. We've flown the nest and we're off to university. I don't know what the voice was there. But yeah, I went to do a bachelor's degree, 3 years, and it was interesting. And we'll get into that right now. And that was because joining in first year, I thought I knew who I was as an artist. I knew that I liked concrete. I knew that I enjoyed assemblage. I knew that I'd worked with kind of life and death, and I wanted to explore rebirth more. That was something I really wanted to do when I started university. And the way that the first year was framed was very much around finding who you are and building on that. Coming in as someone who already was adamant on who they were, I felt like it wasn't the setup that really allowed me to push. It very much made me question everything and maybe brought me back a few steps. But I've actually got the first bit I ever submitted for uni right up here. My little concrete glove. He's still going. Kind of shows how long my works last, really. But yeah, he's still there. He's still going quite well. But that was the first thing I ever did for uni. As kind of like my introductive piece to who I am. But yeah, that first year, I learnt loads. The amount of technique and the amount of knowledge I gathered within those first like months of uni, amazing. I was able to do a concrete workshop, which I loved. That was so good. That was so fun. Don't know what happens to the sculptures now as the campus is closed, but yeah, that was an interesting year for my development as an artist. I don't know if I developed my art. I don't know if I developed my career, but I definitely developed my abilities as an artist. If that makes even the remotest amount of sense. So then we went on to second year, where I felt I was encouraged by everyone kind of around me in terms of an academic sense to just stop concrete, really try and find what else came into my artwork. So what did I do? I I did the only plausible thing, and I made clay sculptures and painted them the color of concrete. Because that really, because that looked really good. I also then I'd started it at the end of first year, but starting to implement found objects back in. I used kind of just miscellaneous parts of kind of radios and piping in first year, and then in second year that took off with like circuit boards, and I tried to contextualize my work in the way that how we're machines and how organs within us are machines, and how I created kind of a graphic imagery with technology instead of bodily fluids and whatnot. Can we not talk about second year anymore, please? I feel like it was so bad. And then third year for me was when I kind of started to throw my toys out the pram and just chucks a load of stuff at concrete and really just tried to experiment on what worked. It was possibly the most important year for me in terms of my development as an artist. Um, that was down to peers around me and how critical they were, but entirely and nearly only about how critical one academic was of my work. And I would never be on the kind of direction I am without the criticism and the very polite words of encouragement. But yeah, that third year was when I was so kind of regimented and precious around concrete. Now I look at it in a completely different manner, but then I was looking at concrete with this very scientific lens of how I was creating experiments. They were all experiments, and they were all had a controlled variable, and then they had the other variable, which I can't remember. It was an independent variable. I definitely didn't look that up. That was all from the old noggin. But yeah, I had such a scientific way of kind of investigating concrete and how it worked, how it reacted. And I was told to not be as precious. I'm working with possibly one of the most widely available materials there is. I was working with wire and I was working with concrete, and all you do to put those together is water. It's like some of the most commonly available things, and I was treating it like I was working with emerald and gold leaf. So, as a rebuttal to those comments, the only sane thing to do would be to obliterate everything you've made with a sledgehammer and then proceed to base the next 2 years off of this sledgehammer, which was great, which was amazing. If you can make a hobby into something that's therapeutic and a rage room, wonderful. Yeah. And it helped towards my education. So that was really, really good. That the amount that I learned from dropping, just getting rid of that little like preciousness I had around the work, game changer, absolute game changer. So I was really, really happy with the outcomes there. They may not have looked that good, but what they were to me, that was really, really something, because it was using concrete, which everyone sees as such an immortal material, and breaking down that kind of the stigma, really. And it was that stigma that then my master's was completely based around. And I felt like my master's was a year long. It was from September to September, no summer break or anything. The amount of one progress that I made during this master's, but also the amount of change and circumstantial just anarchy around it. I don't know what it was, but it allowed my practice to just go wild. I just went mental with like kind of what it was around, why the investigation within to that question of what had captivated me by concrete. Was it a personal issue? Was it an external issue? That was just mega. It was huge across the entirety of that year of the masters. It ended up not doing half badly. So obviously we've now reached more of a present day. Yes, I've finished my master's 6 months ago, but I haven't really developed much of my thinking around concrete, especially since I've finished my master's. I haven't made any work. I haven't seen much work, if I'm honest. So where am I now? Where have we got to within art? Now, what I found during my masters was as close as I can get to an answer to why am I captivated by concrete, and it's all to do with a shared empathy for it. I mentioned this in my last video, and this is where I'll probably go a lot more in depth with it. But concrete shares a really similar deterioration to me. We all might not see it. I see it because I work so closely with it, and it's been a part of my life for nearly half my life now. And it's something I, for 4 or 5 years, day in, day out, handled and worked with and observed and spoke to. And it was learning to listen to it again. And that's where dropping this sense of preciousness came from. I actually was able to really listen to my artwork and actually communicate with it and see what it wanted to do and how I could help with that. I felt like I wasn't the one dictating it, I was the one collaborating with it. And that's where this new understanding with my artwork is just completely revolving around, is this collaboration. As I sympathize for it and I feel like it empathizes with me, we both have this deterioration, and that's what I like to show. That's what my work is now all about. This deterioration, this kind of this gut feeling, this uncertainty that you see when you look at my work. It's how I feel, and I like to make whoever's seeing it feel that little sense of uncomfortability as well. I describe this gut feeling as affect. That absolutely minute, unmeasurable moment in which it's before a conscious decision is made. It could be if you're in danger, or if something is exciting, or if something is anxiety provoking. It's that little switch beforehand. And I call it affect. There's a whole thing around affect theory, which is mind boggling. If you are in the art world, you probably still won't get it. No one does. So that's how I can get away with talking about it, okay? I want to get into affect theory another time because it's mind-blowing. I'd love to write an essay on affect theory, actually. That would be really cool. That was what my dissertation ended up being quite a lot about affect, because that was kind of the thing hidden behind my work, this empathy affecting affect in an audience. We can talk about that another time, but that's where I am now. I think that's a fairly good culmination of where I am with concrete. I like it being a little bit more of a personal commentary through collaboration, and I like that it just has that little bit of a change in feeling. In there's an uncertainty around my work for an audience, and I like the questions that they ask, because that's what art's about. It needs to provoke a reaction. You need to actually get people thinking. So hopefully my art does that. I don't know. You're the audience, you figure it out. And there we have it. Another episode of Orgs Talks done and dusted. If you've stuck around for all of this, fair play. I feel like this has actually been quite good, this one. Good things to come, hopefully, if we can keep achieving this kind of thing. Yeah, emoji time. What are we going to pick today? I did actually have it down. I actually had made a choice for this one. I know what we were going to do. If you could, I think there's 3 possible ones that you can choose. Any kind of hammer, please. We're going a bit West Ham on this one. But yeah, if it could be just the hammer. I think there's like a hammer and a chisel, or there might be a hammer and a wrench. Any of them. Any of those ones. Or just type hammer. But I feel like with this one, come on, you can find the hammer emoji, right? But yeah, thank you so much. It's been great. This has been a really, really good episode. I think we're done. I think we're all good. Thank you so much for watching or listening. But for now, go and enjoy your week. Go and have fun. It's getting a bit sunnier out. But hey, seasonal depression's over. Right, I'm off. Ta-da, lads.